Hey crew, what the heck, man? I stripped a metal diff. Watch this video and see how I install my second set to ensure this doesn't happen to you. These are the parts that we're going to be using today. Regular Arrma metal parts with the composite cup. There's the finished product. We're tearing into the granite today. So stick around. We have a video similar to my last diff video. Thanks for watching if you did. But this is how I install my metal one. So real quickly, use the chapters below if you already know how to tear out your motor module and your drive shaft and stuff. But I figured I would, since I'm doing it, I may as well show the full A to Z installation. By now, a lot of you know how to do this. But getting this module is it's a little sticky sometimes. I have this pry tool. Flat blade driver does just as well. Whammo. All right, once again, I disconnect or unscrew all pieces from the bottom side, from the bottom of the shocks and the turnbuckles closest to the wheels, and basically 4 screws on the bottom of the truck, 3 long, 1 short. I'm quite certain the short one, just basically I use it to just hold the skid plate in place while I'm kind of reconnecting the rest of the truck. These 2 are recessed quite a bit into the truck. They hold the bulkhead in place. And there you go. This whole assembly comes off as one. This is my favorite way to do so. I think it looks pretty easy, and you know what? You don't have any parts laying on the table. At this point, the diff will slide right out. Good for you, Philly B. Look at the maintenance there. It actually has grease. Pretty cool. So this is the original composite diff. Notice I do put these small 3mm washers in between the yokes. I feel this way I can snug them up against the washers and without getting any tightness, because sometimes that does happen. Has to me anyhow. So you need a long 2mm to get rid of your drive shafts. Now we can take the yokes apart, which involves 2 screws. I'm going pretty quick, guys, because I don't want to make a really long video. And again, I do have those 3mm washers as shims or spacers, if you will, in between those 2 yokes. I love this little pry tool. I'll put the link below. A lot of people ask me where I got it. It really is handy. There's the input gear, shredded. Now you can put this in the freezer to get those bearings off. Again, this is my second time, or well, many times I've done it, but I just choose to replace those batteries on the input shaft because on the composite input, they don't want to come off. Now, here is the culprit. Don't be cheap. Although I found a lot of grittiness, and I always in my head, I'm a bit of a hack. I always say, oh, it's just a basher. Slam those batteries, there's bearings back in there. Don't do it, guys. This is the reason that my diff actually crapped out. Remember, this could vary, but I put the shim on the crown gear side, which is the way it comes from the factory, but this doesn't always mean this works. You have to feel how the shim is moving in the yoke and in the truck. So let's take the diff apart. 4 screws. Now these 4 screws you can discard because you will not use them again. The new 4 screws come with the new composite cup. But you will need this gasket. So I've reused this several times. This will be its last ride. All right, now just tear everything apart. All these gears, all these pins, they're all typical, so you don't have to worry which went where. Pull them all out. This is being fast forwarded. Maybe I could even sped it up just a touch more. Do not forget to take this O-ring out. I have reused this several times. Replace if you feel necessary. Yeah, I have a bit of leakage, but here's a gasket. I think this is its last ride. I'm going to finally replace it. You can see around the holes that it's actually torn. See ya. Now, there is a bearing on the end of this out drive. Give it a spin, make sure it's okay. You may want to replace it too. After this experience, I'm cranked. I'm now going to replace every bearing every time moving forward. Here's the new cup. This is the Arrma cup composite. I know they make a metal cup, but I didn't go that route. Philly B stands for budget, so it wasn't in the budget, so I didn't do it. Not to mention, you can get metal yokes as well. Since I've had this metal gear fail on me, I've been reading more about it. I may try that in the future. Here's the new crown gear, crispy looking. Number for you. And here's the new input. Metal, mint. All right, this is us reassembling now. Start with that O-ring, don't forget. You're gonna have some major seepage. Check that bearing, ensure that it's okay, or even better yet, just go for it and replace. There's a washer on there, on the outdrive. Seat that down. I like to have that nice and lubed up. You'll notice I clean it out, but not so great. I want that to slide through without scarring that O-ring, because it is a snug fit. Here we go. Install the planetary gears. Now, I do suggest that you clean it out good enough that you get the diff fluid from out of the little holes, because the little pins that they seat in, they're full of oil, diff oil. It's almost like they're airlocked and they don't want to seat really well, but you just got to fidget with it. Everything will come out. So I've added 20K, and I'm just clearing that middle bearing. That's the way I do it. I've never had any problems with it. You'll see here now we have the crown gear with its insert, the O-ring to commence. Oh, look at that. Fresh. That's a new for Philly B. New one. I always reuse my gaskets. I'm such a hack. But, okay, 4 new countersunk screws that come with the cup. Once again, don't lose that washer on the outdrive on the other side. And gently sneak that through. Again, you don't want to scar that O-ring. That's about it. You'll find that the 2 teats on the cover line up with the 2 lower gears, and you will just gently place that together, and it should sit down. Just give it a wiggle, displace any fluid. Sometimes if you have too much, that cap may resist you a little bit. Now I do use the impact here, but I just get close and then finish by hand. Don't go so fast, guys. I find, through my wrenching days that, that speed on the impact too will burn the rubber, heat it right up, and I find the threads get weaker after that. So get close, cross pattern. Look at that. FTD. I usually just grab a drive shaft just because it's hard to grab onto. I've seen guys use pliers and stuff, but I don't recommend you do that. I just want to see that the gears are, the outdrives are opposing one another. Traxxas, no. Yeah, here's the new gears. It's just a standard gear that goes on the input. Now I find what's nice about these, on the composite input gear or composite shafted input gear, you got to press them on. These have a slightly smaller OD, outer diameter on there, and they just slide right on. Here's the covers. You'll know there's a little tit on the left side. Make sure you have this on the right, on the correct side, or you're going to be taking it apart again. Now I always do a little dry fit here and ensure that they seat in their spots. Now these two, I replace these bearings as well in the yokes. Don't be a hack like me. It's the bearings that failed. Is the reason I got my diff, my metal diff, which cost like $100. Failed on its first run. I was so mad. I thought it was indestructible. There you go. Yeah, ensure there's no binding. Here's that teat once again. Teat, tit, whatever you want to call it. Don't mess it up. But I do suggest replacing the bearings. The bearing is already in the yoke there. Give it a nice squeeze. I often get a big set of channel locks just to ensure that I'm coming down squarely. Sorry I don't show it, but it'll work its way down. That's me inserting those washers once again. I don't know, it's benefited me, and I'm continuing to do it. This way, you don't squeeze the yokes too much. And you don't have to leave them backed off, which I did before and it worked, but this way I just like to know that I have a nice tight connection. Yeah, finish off by hand, mint. There we go. So I chose 20K. This is for my rear diff. 10K is stock. I usually go a little heavier in the front. I go 50 for right currently. I've been enjoying that. So drive shafts, ensure you put just a dab of blue Loctite on both sides. And do that before you grease the diff. I did that in my last video and it just made a mess. I had to clean it off and start over. So honestly, use the slightest amount of blue Loctite there will be just fine. I use Red and Tacky. It's deemed a marine grease, and it's been working for me, and I'm known for going pretty liberal on it. I go for quite a bit. Now this is when you want to feel, when that diff, if you feel tightness through its whole revolution spinning it within, you will likely need to remove that shim or add one on the other side. This is critical because obviously these, well, my bearing did fail, but these metal diffs are, although pretty darn close to indestructible, they are not completely. So mess with that shim. Add one on the other side if need be. So yeah, I always install that small screw first just to hold it in place while I get the A-arms out of the way and seat that bulkhead down. And you'll feel a nice seat, and I'll put the two long screws there to hold that all together. Don't mind that hack job where my middle finger's sticking out. That is that hole that a lot of guys with 3S Arrmas have under their spur gear. Well, I missed it the first and second time, but honestly, it's made no difference. It hasn't really created a weak spot, so I'm definitely an advocate to do that. It lets all the gear exit. My spur gear is at least a year old. I've blown more diffs than spurs. Here we go. We're close now, guys. Let's get the turnbuckles back on and the shocks. Man, my granite's hurting. Poor little girl. Poor baby. Same to the other side. Ensure the drive shaft seats first. So the motor mount, make sure you get all the debris out of there or else it won't want to slide into place. Excuse my elbow. And I always put my wheels back on so I can roll it. So this way the back of the module and it will seat a little bit better. It's a little easier for movement. Reconnect your cables. And there is a handy little clip, unless maybe you haven't noticed it, that they call it the cable management system inside the frame there. And it really holds the cables quite nice. There's my yellow electrical tape. Like I said, I do what I need to do to get this baby working. Now reinstalling that red tab. That keeps that motor module back into place. 4mm countersunk that you took out at the beginning of the video. See, there's my spur gear. Yeah, it's a little excessive, my cutout, but it works. I suggest you try it to your truck. I've done it to both my 3S's and it worked really well. Here's the end spline. Please hit one of the videos in the end screen, guys, if you want to see another cool how-to video or bashing video. Appreciate y'all. Peace.